And we're back. We have a big hour of National Football League action coming up now. I'm delighted to be joined by former Donegal star Brendan Devenney on the line to look back at Donegal's big win over Kerry at the weekend. Brendan, how are you?
The very best way, keeping good. I just got the kids to bed and the usual panic, and we're there again now.
The hard work is done. You can relax now. You can chill out for the night now.
Anybody knows me, I'll be saying this man doesn't work hard, but you know what the problem is? When you get invested in your kids' playtime, because I'm a kid myself sometimes, that can be a problem in the evening there. But anyway, when you're after a big feed of curry there and then you're jumping about in the couch, I would listen anyway, it's done, and they're really bad tired now. I nearly have to scratch it myself after this week.
Never lose that childish innocence, Brendan. I can tell you that. Never lose it. I presume, Brendan, as a brilliant forward back in the day yourself, Paddy McBrearty's clutch point at the end, like, I presume the hair standing on the back of your neck watching something like that.
Oh, massive. I can't remember being as excited about a league game, particularly a first league game, and so long. I've never seen a build-up anything like this. And Patrick will tell you himself, he had a very quiet game, He missed a free halfway through that half, which he normally would pop over easily, but he hadn't any real shots on goal, and you can forgive anybody for that. But it's as if, cometh there and that wee give go that you need to do with that packed defence, that he just found that bit of room, the bit of experience. And there was something about as he was lining up in that famous left peg of his, and it just about got over the bar. But as he hit the ball, I could feel the headlines coming in, for the new captain, Mike. But, the backstory to this was unbelievable. I mean, okay, Kerry, 5 of All-Ireland, Donegal, 5 of the last team that started in the championship. Donegal gave five debutants, but that has nothing got to do with what's been happening in Donegal, since Declan Bonner's departure. There was a big gap then when before Declan called time. There was a massive gap then about who was coming in. The rumour mill was going crazy, and it actually got a bit toxic then around, who wants the job, and when the guys came in, then there was even more trouble then around numbers of training, guys that weren't necessarily committing. If you look at the Shane and Niall O'Donnell, don't like they're going to be a part of it this year. And I know Niall has a bit of an injury. Pater Morgan's in London. He hasn't committed yet, and there's 3. Of course, Michael Murphy retires, Neil McGee retires, two of our best ever. Michael, your captain. So you're thinking about, when a new manager comes into a team, you might have a few hoops to jump through, a few things to get right. On top of that, injuries to some of your best players. And you're just looking at this Donegal team thinking what's going to happen on the day. And when they went 163 down, after about 25 minutes, you thought, geez, this is a nightmare for Paddy Carr and his crew. But from that, 7 points in a row, and either side of the half put Donegal in a great position, and the home crowd got behind them in that. And as I say, it just fed into this brilliant thing in Ballybofey, the record. And Kerry, missed a few opportunities, lost their shape at the start of the second half in particular, but they rated that, and they had enough good players in the pitch to think that they could have went on, at least got a point out of the game. But I think from Donegal's perspective, it's a massive 2 points at home. They have 3 league games at home this year and 4 away, so it's going to be a difficult league.
It finished obviously 13 points to 1-9. I think Kerry only lost 1 game last year. I think that was a meaningless league game against Tyrone, so they're already behind the 8 ball a small bit. But Paddy Carr would have been behind the 8 ball a small bit too. The pessimism maybe you talk about, the protracted, filling the managerial hot seat, Michael Murphy retiring, as you say, players opting out. This is exactly what he needed to kickstart the reign, isn't it, realistically? And particularly in Division 1, which is so cutthroat, to get off to a good start, to have 2 points on the board. Look at the counties that don't have 2 points on the board. So I'd imagine he was a pretty happy man. Now, saying that, you have to move on fairly quickly. They have Tyrone next weekend, they have to travel there, but it's the perfect start for him.
Brilliant start for him. And, he's so, talking to him after the game, and that he's so softly spoken, that I can't see, and he said straight away, listen, if we had lost that by a point, I would have been so proud of lads. And it was a brilliant thing to say. I thought it was a great quote, because he realised that game was on a knife edge. Particularly with minutes counting down. Say with 5 minutes to go, Donegal were a point up. Kerry had 3 brilliant chances, and he missed them all to equalise. And at that point, the subs had come on to him, had given them more energy. Donegal were hanging on a small bit. At that point, they got the equaliser, and then, I say, McBrearty kicked the winner. But some of the performances that Paddy, you talk about a new guy coming in, and with so many experienced players out, that your go-to players, your Owen Barnes, Ryan McHughes, Langans, Kieran Thompson, all these players out, you're thinking, right, who's going to step up? Suddenly from nowhere, debutant Keelan McColgan, man of the match, had 3 unreal points. Conor O'Donnell, again, had 3 brilliant points in the game too. One was left foot, was remarkable when the Kerry defence more or less were like, you're out on your left, we're going to wait for you to come inside, and he just curls the ball over the bar. And I think another player has to get a mention is Darragh Boyle, who was completely out of favour in Declan Bonner's time. Paddy made him captain against Down in the McKenna Cup, which was very interesting, and it just shows the new management comes in. Players can stand up. But, going into that game, we were doing a bit of commentary before it, and Oisin Kelly said to me, can you predict it? And I said, it's impossible to see. But what you did see in the game was Donegal respond to being almost out of the game in the first half, and they really rallied. And I suppose you're talking about Paddy Carr, that must be massively pleasing for him, because already now he has that bit of a buzz in the group, and training will be good this week leading into Tyrone.
I know Paddy McBurty had a quiet game maybe coming up to that kick at the end. But how important is it for someone like him to stand up in a moment like that when a game is there to be won? And the new faces you were talking about, the likes of Caelan McColgan and a few other guys, there weren't, as many familiar faces as we would know, or, that we'd know well from Donegal. So how important is it now in Michael Murphy's absence that guys almost stick their chest out and take the responsibility on?
Well, yeah, and Paddy's been throwing back some lines about that. I've really been impressed with this, because I think in his interview pre the start of the league, people were saying that it's going to be a tough league, and he's like, well, we want to excel in the league. We want to go and beat everybody. And I actually loved his talk, and he's been asked a few questions about taking on the captaincy and about the Donegal team as it stands, and there's no nonsense from him, which is really encouraging, and I suppose it's a great mental strength. He's our last tie back to the great 2012 team, playing corner forward that day, and I suppose he's been there and seen it all now. And I suppose this irreplaceable stature figure that Michael Murphy was, as the young lads is coming through, you say 5 debutants of the team, and every one of them played their part in the victory over Kerry. But if they're going to look to somebody to talk, who now is the most respected and senior man in there? It has to be McBurty. So it's massive for him. And then, as I say, because I think sometimes you can see that in the full forward line, you can be out of the game a bit. It quite often be a thing where you have to show maybe one a free, kick a free. But Kerry had their full back line from the All Ireland on, so it was a difficult prospect inside, particularly for a full forward line. And Jamie Brennan found it slow to get going for a while, but he really came on it in the second half. But I'd say, what does it matter really when you kick the winning point? That's all we remember. You talk about. It's funny how in our game of GA, there's point for points in there. There's some brilliant scores, but what really counts was McBurty's one. So as I say, it's great for him, because I think that's one could have been. There's many reasons that Michael Murphy stepped away, Mick, but I think that one of the big ones was probably that he set the tone and the tempo all day, every day. And if he thought that maybe wasn't in his army anymore, it might have been just a thing that he didn't want to be involved in. There's no doubt he could have played. So for Patrick to kind of nail 2 points on the board, it's great for him in terms of, I suppose, his leadership now as well going forward.
On McBurty's performance, it's funny, you are only one ball away from playing well, particularly if it's at the end of a game. You're only one positive thing with the ball away from winning a game. And just Anthony Moyles was talking earlier on the week on OTB AM about Patrick McBurty's change of role, shall we say, like probably a lifelong corner forward, particularly at county level, and maybe adapting to have to play that full forward role. Would you have even seen that much in your own career? They are 2 different positions. I know sometimes teams might only have 1 inside, or they might only have 2 inside, but there's a massive difference, say, from McBurty's point of view, playing at the edge of the square, or predominantly at the edge of the square, maybe compared to being out in the corner where you're maybe only going to get 1 in 3 balls, whereas if you're in around the edge of the square, you should be getting, the bulk of the balls are going to come down the middle. Would you have had anything like that in your own career? And it's probably going to take a few games for Patrick to settle into as well.
Yeah, well, I think, you're right. There are 2 different roles if you go back to when there was a time when that used to be. I mean, when he first came on the scene, it was always 2 inside, probably just coming to the end of that time. And he would have been probably the player came out a bit much, and then Michael would have rotated and that. But Patrick was just an undoubted star. You remember he played for minor and senior in the one day in Jim's first year, which is an amazing thing to do. You think of the athletic ability of the boy at that stage. And we were just like, wow, here comes another huge talent on the back of having Murphy in there and Colin McFadden. But I think for him at club and at underage level, and everywhere he went, schools, college, whatever, he was the main man inside. And I think it took him a while to adjust to the fact that he was, certainly third on the list compared to McFadden and Murphy, and McFadden kicking frees as well, which meant it took, I suppose, Patrick a while to kind of be the main man. And I think once he did, he was always a central player, and that's where he'd be for his club. And I think he revels in that. And it's interesting you make that point, because him and Murphy could never play well together for whatever reason. I just think I think Patrick just likes to be, right, I'm the full forward, I'm the go-to guy, I kick the frees, particularly the left-footed ones. He loves that responsibility, revels in it. So I think it suits him to be in that position.
Just a word, Brendan, on Jack O'Connor. Wasn't particularly happy after the game. He just made a point that Donegal had a point there that was blatantly wide. I mean, everyone in the stand, you saw that, did you? I would have said there was definitely a very debatable Kerry point at one stage as well. But if you're a Kerry player or a Kerry supporter, surely you're happy that Jack is fighting tooth and nail at this stage for a point in the league. It's kind of a statement of intent. He probably knows how difficult it's going to be to pick up points in this league. It's probably not a bad thing. Like, if he was just letting it rub off his shoulder and it wasn't a big deal, there'd be maybe a sense that some complacency would set in. But that was definitely stuck in his craw after.
Yeah, 100%. Listen, he's a winner. Come into the season so well last year, as you said. Not coughing up any games except for that last one, and I think only conceding that one goal throughout that whole run. And it was something, I suppose, that you probably seen that narkiness was more probably that he knew that Kerry had enough to at least get a point, and he'd be happy to go down the road going, we got a point. And listen, he's a coach. You look at the stars, we all know, obviously, the Rathmore, the Fossa boys and that gone, and Sean O'Shea and boys like that. Of course, listen, when you have all those players, do you say then that it's an easier job? So I think in many ways, maybe he looked at that going, I'm threadbare here. I'm going to put together a tactical team. I'm going to bring on my subs at the right time, which I think he did, and I'm going to do enough to win this match. And I think maybe it was a wee mini challenge for him after maybe the success that they swept last year. So I think that's what it was. If you're someone that's complaining about a potential wide point in the game like that, sure, it's irrelevant, because unless it's the last kick of the game or that, you can never call into question what was what. And as you said there, it was definitely wide, because that was the opposite side to where he was, on this near post on our side where we were doing the commentary from. So listen, that was a definite wide as well. But I think what more I'd say his frustration was that in that period when Kerry were chasing down the 1 point lead at Donegal's with time closing in, they missed 3 simple opportunities. And I was thinking that's probably more where his frustration was coming out.
Can I just ask you, Brendan, as a forward, I wonder what your perspective is as the roving keeper. It looks like it's here to stay, but there was definitely, Rory Beggan was probably caught out in the Monaghan game. Brendan McCall was dispossessed in the Donegal game. Carlow got a goal against Wicklow in Division 4 as well. Where do you stand even as a forward on that? Is the risk worth the reward? And as a forward, would you love to be facing that, trying to play a game of chicken with a keeper, try and show him a pocket of space and then cut down the space?
I would love to be like those that Monaghan and Kerry goes kicking the ball into the empty net. That's not a bad scenario. Listen, from a Donegal perspective, obviously sickening, because something similar happened to us, of course, at the end of the championship last year. The same 2 players. And I suppose just another word, listen, on Patton, I'm glad you brought it up. I mean, his kickouts are absolutely phenomenal. Of course, if the short kickouts on, people want to take it and work it. And particularly as Donegal were feeling their game, way into the game at that stage. But I mean, of all things, again, go back to poor Paddy Carey, must be thinking, well, Lord God, what is going on here? I mean, a giveaway bloody goal when Donegal were already chasing the game a small bit in the first half. But listen, they responded well. But this roving keeper, I don't know, it's strange. All the keepers out there were like, listen, we want to be out and part of the game and come out doing this and that, and they're more involved. And, maybe that's great from one perspective, but it just upsets the flow of the game. Listen, I was at a Segerson game the other night and the keeper was coming out. It was Jordanstown against UCD, and the keeper coming out for all the kickouts and that. And it just seemed to unbalance things a bit. I don't know. I can't say that I like it, but listen, I just think from Beggan's perspective and Patton that they're so good that I'm not blaming Patton for the goal as such. McCall had the ball in one hand. He should have held on to it tighter. It was a wet day and blah, 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 first game. But I just, looking at some of Patton's kickouts, they were almost within a couple of inches of a Kerry man getting a hand on it and straight under the Donegal boy's chest. I mean, I've never seen anything like it. It's unreal. You would think sometimes was he lucky, but he does it that often that he's just that good. But certainly, like for Verney as well, and a start at Monaghan, that was probably the thing that gave Armagh the push to win the game. So that's very disappointing from him in his first home game as well. So listen, I suppose Monaghan and Donegal fans would be happy for the keeper to try and clip the ball out the wing or go long and gain possession from that, because at least you have a chance to defend it then.
Just lastly, from a Donegal point of view going forward, Brendan, can they kick on from this? I'm sure you're hoping that they're going to be able to kick on and, get at least the 5 or 6 points that are needed to stay up in Division 1 and potentially push on. But I'd be a bit fearful that could be a slight false dawn, but because you're going to need to back it up week after week after week now.
Yeah, listen, realistically, it's still a squad that's very threadbare. Look at the Tyrone team the last day. They had a good side out. I mean, they're 3 points up and they got that goal. Darren McCurry slips in. If they go 6 points up, listen, they by and large going to win that game. And now all the abuse, and I was just thinking about the management, the different people that just from game one, whatever it is about game one, it seems to almost like people are like, that's us for the season. I was in Tyrone on the Monday yesterday, and people were saying, there might need to be a change. I was like, here, lads, come on. You go and beat us next week, and, everything's back to some level of normality. So, listen, that's a very difficult game. That's a hardened top Tyrone team. As I said, All Ireland Championship a couple of years ago, they have the majority of that team out. We don't have the majority of our team. So a massive test for the lads. Maybe in some ways, if they're targeting their 3 home games, if they won them, 6 points, we'll stay up. That could be the thing. You have Tyrone, Donegal, Monaghan away after that. They're back-to-back away games. So if they could get a win out of either of them, it would set them in fantastic state for it to go. And I think just how teams are playing now, everyone's playing a bit of a blanket defence. It does allow teams to play a bit and allows teams to grow into the game, because everyone gets a touch of the ball. You're on about them. Just talking about them 5 debutants and that, used to be years ago, you were a debutant, sometimes you're one-on-one and it could go against you or the game could pass you by or the pressure's on, whereas now everybody gets a wee touch of the ball and gets into the game, and I think that'll suit this Donegal team as they kind of mould themselves into a force. And as these players come back, I think Donegal will get better and better. So if they were to pick up a one against their friends in Tyrone on Sunday, would be massive and would set them up for the rest of the league.
It'll be spicy, no doubt, much like your curry. So you go and let that curry digest, and we'll chat again. Thanks a million, Brendan.
Cheers, Mike. No bother, man.